here again. Today, I bring you two scholars, two translators, and two masters of Daoism. So let's take a listen as they take us through their very exciting journey of Daoism. All right, let's go. Okay, good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I must say, it's very good to have you here in China, in Luyi County, Zhoukou City in Henan province of China. And we're having the World Federation of Daoism, the first session of ancestor worshiping ceremony of Supreme Lord Lao Tzu, and the first meeting of the first council of World Federation of Daoism in this place, in this part of China. And I'm very happy that I have the opportunity to talk to you two masters at the same time. Wow, what beats that, I don't know. So thank you very much for first agreeing to do this, and I must say I'm deeply honored to have you here with me. So before we start, can you please introduce yourselves?
Sure. You want me first?
Yes, please go first.
I'm Jack Schaefer, and my Taoist name is Xie Liu Xuan, and I'm a 22nd generation Transcendental Men priest with ordination in Qingchang.
All right. Would it be correct if I call you Master Jack?
It's weird, but Jack is fine.
Okay, yeah, sorry. For the purpose of this interview, please let me stick with Master Jack. Okay.
Sure.
All right, please let's meet you.
I'm Josh Paynter. My Taoist name is Pei Li Wen. I was ordained at Qingcheng Shen, right next to him, by our teacher Zhang Mingxin. And I'm from New York.
All right. Thank you very much. My first question goes to Master Jack. How did you find yourself in Daoism?
Oh man, I hate that question. It's such a roundabout question, because as a kid, I grew up with a lot of interest in Eastern culture, Eastern religion, Eastern martial arts, Eastern medicine, all of those things. And as I got older, I found my way through martial arts into, meditation. And I think I first read the Tao Te Ching as 13 or 14 years old, something
wow,
like that. I didn't understand it. I'll say I read it, But as I got older, I just had this attraction to the culture and to the other aspects besides martial arts. I liked the martial arts, but I was interested in other things, and it was kind of a momentum in my life that just kept pulling me towards Taoism and Taoist studies. And so I studied in college, and it led me to living and studying in China and studying Chinese medicine and all of those things. I really almost can't say that there was a definitive reason or thing. I think there was just some momentum in my life that I really had no control over that just took me in this direction.
Thank you very much. Master Josh, over to you.
My trajectory is very much the same as Jack's. What started as we had copies of the Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi in my house. My parents were both interested in various spiritual things, and so those books were in my house. Though I don't even know if they identified them as Taoist texts. I don't know what their perspective on it was, but they were there. And of course, growing up in the 70s, there were a lot of martial arts movies coming from China. They were very popular in the United States, and so martial arts movies, the martial arts themselves, and then these mystical books on the shelf prompted an interest, but the interest was really, for me, it really became my connection to Taoism was most manifest when I went to China the first time in 1990, and I saw a Taoist ceremony taking place. And I was with a translator because I couldn't speak any Chinese then. And they told me, oh, it's a ceremony, it's too hard to explain what's going on. And I really wanted to know, and they couldn't explain it. And I thought to myself, I'm coming back here someday, and when I do, I'll speak Chinese. And so when I went to college, I studied Chinese language really intensely, and then enrolled in college in Yinandyang in Kunming. And that, when I went back to China in 94, I actually could speak Chinese, and when I went to Taoist temples, I could understand what was happening. And that's when my journey really began, was in college. My main interest in Taoism definitely morphed from martial arts into the poetics, linguistics, and philosophical theories and spiritual cultivations of Taoism. It became much less of Wu, or the martial, and much more of the Wen, the cultural.
Okay, thank you very much. That's such an interesting journey, I must say. So, Master Jack and Master Josh, you work together. Master Jack, could you please tell us the nature of your work?
Sure. So, together we formed an organization 2016, I think, called Parting Clouds. It's a Taoist education, Taoist education organization. It's really become kind of a temple organization in a way. And it started, with a walk in the mountains in Xinjiang. And we were reflecting on, at the time, our own journeys together, how we had gotten to where we are, what our teachers were like and not like, and the things we wish we had learned, things we had wished people made available to us. Yeah, as you know, being a Westerner trying to learn Taoism is it's like looking into a closet with the lights off, and you have no idea what's in there, and there's nobody telling you what's there, but there's a bunch of stuff that you can kind of reach in and feel and touch, and sometimes it's misleading. And in the West, it was really challenging, and we both had this feeling that we'd, spun our wheels for years trying to learn this stuff, and we had this kind of what if, how would we do it differently? And that question of how would we do it differently actually turned into let's do it differently. And so we started making it available to students, and Parting Clouds as an institution, as an organization, has this amazing momentum that has nothing to do with either of us. It just is. It's a energy all in of itself that just pulls us along, and the needs that it comes up with, we find ways to fill. It's really been something.
Thank you very much. And I like the aspects where you said that Parting Clouds, it kind of got to a point where it developed a life of its own. Yeah. It means that it's touching people's lives. It means that it's changing people. It means that people are reacting to it very positively. Could you please tell us what have been your greatest achievements with Parting Clouds?
Go ahead.
Yes.
I think that the achievements of Parting Clouds really can be divided into two parts. One is inside of Parting Clouds, and one is outside of Parting Clouds. In terms of the insides of Parting Clouds, what we have achieved is a very caring, compassionate group of people who have really become a community, who help each other, who help others, and who are committed to contributing to the future of Taoism in the West in general. That's on the inside of Parting Clouds. That's the part that no one else sees.
And there's hundreds of them.
And there's hundreds of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
On the outside, we have produced translations of the essential liturgical texts of our sect, the texts that are practiced at the altar, at the temples. These are the texts that are sung, instrumentation, ritual involvements, things like that. When you go to a Taoist temple, if you're seeing something taking place there, chances are it's one of these scriptures. Now, we produce these translations. Clearly, we didn't also produce the musical and instrumental, notations and ritual performances. What we translated and what we provide is an ability for Westerners to understand what is happening when they view these rituals at almost every temple within our purview, our sect. And so this was one of our early aims, was to, I wouldn't call it demystify, because I think when you read the text you're actually more mystified than anything else, but to turn on the lights in that closet that Jack was referring to shed light on what's happening inside of that ritual. What are the words that they're saying? What is the meaning behind those words that they're saying? So that even if someone isn't learning the actual performance of these things, what they are learning or having access to is the meaning behind it. And in that way, in a human-to-human way, they can relate to what they're viewing, what they're witnessing, and what they may aspire to be able to one day perform themselves.
Wow, that is very illuminating. That is very illuminating, because I'm a Chinese language speaker myself, but I've watched many of the rituals, and I must say that I don't know anything they're talking about. Because not because I don't understand Chinese perfectly, or not because I don't understand everyday Chinese, but those are not everyday Chinese.
No, that's the thing.
So that gets me to the next question I want to ask Master Jack. How do you get to do that? You are Caucasian, you're American, getting all the way to the roots of Chinese language. This is what we're talking about. How do you move from that to English language?
I think that's a really interesting question, and it's a really complicated process, And I also feel, and I'm going to speak for Josh in this, I feel like it's a never satisfied process where no matter what we translate, we never really feel like it's quite right, And as you know, by somebody who speaks Chinese, sometimes there are things that you read or hear that you're like, I don't really know how to say this in English, but I know what this means. And it's a process that it's actually not impossible, because there is lots of commentary written on all of these things, and we've used commentary books, and we find commentaries on the scriptures, and a lot of them share Buddhist terminology, and so some of them will use the Buddhist terminology, and it's just a slow, agonizing process, and with lots of re-editing, Yeah.
If I could add to that, I think one of the interesting things to discern here when we're talking about translating something is that there's the overt text, which is to say the Chinese. But the Chinese is a single layer and a two-layer laminate structure. The other underlying layer is Daoism. So you don't just translate the Chinese, you have to translate the Daoism as well. So for instance, if you speak Chinese, understand it, are literate in it, when you pick up a Taoist text, you're not reading Chinese, you're just reading. What you're reading is the Taoism, and you either understand that or you don't. And it's there that lies a really integral part of the Taoist tradition, which is the commentarial tradition. So much of Taoist literature in the Taoist canon is commentarial. So we'll have a core text, for instance, like the Tao Te Ching, and then there are hundreds of commentaries on the Tao Te Ching in there. And what we see there is that each of those authors of those commentarial bodies is interpreting that text newly, freshly, differently. So these are all Chinese speakers who only spoke Chinese, and they're still translating that text. They're translating it from Taoism into Chinese.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so when we translate something, we know, because we're translating it within the doctrine of Chuanzhen Longmen, which is the school that we belong to, and we know that there are certain doctrines within it and certain viewpoints, and so the translation, as we go through it, we know has to match that.
Yeah.
And so we don't reinvent something. If we read something and it sounds cryptic, then we know we need to research it.
Wow.
Because it has to match the doctrine of the lineage.
Wow.
So in a way, that actually becomes a support for us in the translation.
Wow.
Yeah, these are the hermeneutical issues that we face in translation. The translator has to have a perspective, and they have to have an interpretive model that they're working from. Otherwise, the translation is a mixed bag. It's sort of willy-nilly, and it doesn't work out well.
Yeah, like in a way, you know the end of what it's supposed to look like.
Wow, that's a great one to add to what I already have from you, Master Jack. Master Josh. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Everyone does it.
That's a lot of information for me to add to what I already got from you. So thank you very much on that note. I'm going to be switching gears right now to Daoism and then TCM practitioner. All right. I know that both of you are TCM practitioners, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that there are so many people who do TCM practices and they are not in Daoism. Mm-hmm. Probably I will start with Master Jack. Could you please tell us what are the differences between TCM, the general TCM, and the TCM in Daoism?
That's an interesting question. I'm going to rephrase something just a little bit because as far as I'm concerned, like Chinese medicine is built around Chinese natural sciences. And so all of what that means then is the cause of a disease is based on the Chinese natural sciences. The things that it does to the body and how the body works is based on Chinese natural sciences. And then the cure for the disease is based on Chinese natural sciences. And so what that means is, I can use those sciences, so we might say yin and yang and 5 phases and those, qi blood, body fluid, and the understanding the meridians and all of those things. They're completely separate from religion. And so it doesn't matter who learns it, you learn it like a system. You know the science, so I know this thing causes this problem in somebody, and I know I can apply this cure, and they all fit together in that scientific model we call it Chinese natural sciences. Chinese medicine for a Taoist, so I'm going to use the term Taoist medicine. It's not really a real term, but I think it's acceptable for now. It's a different animal in and of itself because it's a spiritual medicine. To practice Daoist medicine, you have to be Daoist, because what you're doing is you're doing medicine that involves deities, involves incantations, it involves rituals, it involves talismans. Maybe they involve herbs or acupuncture or those things, but a Taoist may do Chinese medicine based on Chinese medicine principles, but that doesn't make it Taoist medicine. It makes it a Taoist doing Chinese medicine. To do a Taoist medicine, you have to be Taoist. So it's not accessible to anybody and everybody like regular Chinese medicine might be. And then, so as a Taoist, when you look at taking care of somebody, we look at the cause being, supernatural or spiritual or something like that, or maybe even mundane, but the cure is going to be different. The cure doesn't have to be related to the natural sciences. The cure can end up being something to do with a deity or another spirit or incantation, talisman, things like that, because what we're doing is generating a cure that's not of the normal world. It's not using the natural sciences. It's beyond the natural sciences. And that's how come you can take something like a piece of paper, write a talisman on it, and give somebody something to cure a really serious disease.
And it works.
And it works, yeah. So that's really the difference between Chinese medicine and Taoism, just on a superficial level. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, but superficially, that's the difference. The other aspect of it that I think is really important is that Chinese medicine is largely an intellectual pursuit. You know, you can read a bunch of books, you can learn all of the algorithms of doing Chinese medicine, and then you can do it. It's largely a plug and play medicine. You read the things, you learn it, you see the problems, you match the symptoms, you match your diagnostics to that, and then the cures are basically fill in the blank based on that. That's why it works so well.
Oh, all right. So if you say it like that, it means that when you say it's religious, I was thinking maybe it has to do with something like a faith, like we have in many other religions. So if it is plug and play, just like
Daoist medicine isn't. Though Daoist medicine, that's just Chinese medicine. Daoist medicine requires the practitioner to really be cultivated in certain ways and have certain levels of cultivations and achievements in themselves before they can actually do that. Imagine if you're interacting with a deity and you're asking a deity to intervene in this making a cure. A deity has to have a reason to be willing to interact with you as a person.
Yes.
And so you have to go through certain, personal cultivations and personal practices in order for that to happen and for that to work. Okay. So that's not plug and play. And that's why it's not accessible to just anybody. It's much more difficult.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
That's very elaborate. And I want to ask you, Master Josh, what is the mind-body connection with Daoism? I mean, what does Daoism teach when it comes to the mind and the body?
Yeah, there are a few. The mind-body dyad is a very important aspect of Taoist practice and theory both. The condition of being a human, of course, is to exist within those two frameworks, which is an apparent contradiction and problem. The spirit really has no bounds. The spirit experiences things atemporally and non-spatially, whereas the body experiences things specifically spatially and specifically temporally. And so we're now in a dichotomous position, being a human being, where we have these vying realities. A mind that is ageless and capable of interdimensional realities, dreaming, imagination. We can imagine things that have never been before. We can imagine going to places that our body has never taken us. And yet we're in a body that requires that we get on a plane, that we walk, that we eat, that we sleep. The body can't walk through walls. The body can't fly. The body can't do a lot of these things that the mind can do. And so the human condition necessarily then is one that requires very specific processes to integrate this great dichotomy. Now, Taoism perceives the mind and body, of course, as a continuum. There are edges to the mind and the body that are fuzzy, and where they integrate, they become sort of indiscernible from each other. But nonetheless, they are distinct. So there is a mind-body distinction. A lot of people say, oh, that Taoism is holistic, which is to say that the mind and body are one, some kind of nonsense like that. That's actually not at all the case. We have distinct characters that describe mind and body. Xin for heart, mind, Shen, Ti, Xiang, all of these, the aspects of the physical body and its descriptions, both in contour and form. So we do recognize clearly a distinction in mind and body, and ultimately, in the Taoist vernacular, the Taoist vocabulary, we have two very distinct terms that sort of alleviate a lot of the potential issues of these dichotomous terms, in that, they don't leave room for the integrative aspect. And we have in Taoism the concepts of Xing and Ming, which is to say the ultimate sense of the mind and its oneness with the Tao, and Ming, the body that is caused by the trajectory that is perpetuated by our causes and effects, our karma. And so we then, if we view the dichotomy of mind and body in this more subtle way, which is to say the aspect of humanity that is one with the Tao and the aspect of humanity that is divergent from the Tao, these two things can be rectified through the various cultivations of Taoist practice, both ontologically and physically. And so mind-body really asks us to cultivate ourselves morally, ethically, which is to say, in the body, and refraining the body from hedonistic pursuits, for instance, is one way, which get us into trouble karmically and physically and all the rest. Drinking too much, staying up too late, that's not good for the body. Neither is a variety of what we might call, in other senses, immoral acts that put us in danger in certain ways. These are ways to shorten one's lifespan. So to cultivate the body is to cultivate oneself in the various choices that we make, whether they be dietary or behavioral. And to cultivate the mind is to winnow the mind, reduce the mind, rarefy and purify the mind, so that all that we're left with is its root consciousness, unattached to all the varieties of the conventional world. And so the cultivation in the Taoist sense of mind and body is one that is, they're mutually perpetuating each other. The moral and the ontological conditions of our humanity both have so much to do with each other. To cultivate the body is to cultivate the mind, and to cultivate the mind is to cultivate the body. And so ultimately and in the end, though we recognize these distinctions, we have to work in both frameworks simultaneously to arrive at what we call in Daoism immortality or something like that, which is to say the perfection of our form and the consciousness that drives that form.
Thank you very much. That's very illuminating. Yes, we're talking about cultivating the mind and the body. So what role does meditation take? What role does it take in mind-body cultivation in the line of Daoism? Master Jack?
That's interesting, because I think when you ask meditation, we probably need to do is frame what do we mean by meditation.
Okay.
Because from the Taoist perspective, there are a lot of different practices that fall into the category in English of meditation. But they're all really, really different, because we've got on one end something like apophatic meditation, where we're, like Josh is saying, winnowing the mind and reducing thoughts and, trying to find that emptiness within emptiness. And then there are practices that are completely the opposite, where we're really creating visualizations or, ingestion practices. There are multiple types of meditations. Some look more like Qigong, like we would think of a Qigong practice. And so that's the first question, I think, is we have to decide, well, what do we mean by meditation? Because each of those then has a specific why to them, like what they're doing for us. And then we have to frame that on top of what is the historical period that practice is offered in. Because through time, some of those practices and their utility has changed. So the utility of a visualization practice from the Shangqing practitioners, in the way back times, those aren't used in the same way anymore, And so that's the first thing I think we always have to do is really clarify what we're talking about. If we're going to narrow it down, or I'm going to narrow it down for the sake of the conversation, what I'm thinking about is probably apophatic meditation. And that apophatic practices where we're, for example, something like Xinjai, we call, sort of fasting the mind, where we're basically purposely sitting and trying not to engage in our thoughts. Because using, like what Josh was just saying a minute ago, many of the thoughts that we sit and think then are they're actually more close to our body than they are to our true mind. They're more close to related to our senses and our desires and all of those things. They're really So if we're fasting our mind, maybe we're sitting and doing a meditation where we're just letting go of those things. We're not attaching to them. We're just trying to recognize them for the illusion that they are, that they're not really my real mind. There's some sort of thing I'm chasing, some sort of illusion that's leading me by the nose. And so I think meditation as a practice then in that apophatic practice does two really cool things for us. One is it does really help us still our mind, and it gives us a signpost of where we're at in our cultivation towards Tao. So if the experience of the Tao is partly shown to you through experiences of true emptiness and sort of almost like a bliss that comes with that emptiness, then if I can't even get close to that, it shows me that I'm not there. So if I'm not meditating, then I don't really know where I'm at, and I may be full of more illusion, thinking I'm a much more cultivated person than I am. So that's a neat thing that meditation can do. The other thing that it does is it really pulls to the forefront all of those things, all of those desires, all of the things that our mind is engaging in, all of the stories that it writes, all of the, our engagement in our senses and wants and not wants, our feelings, our attachments to things, all of that stuff, those always come to the forefront when we're meditating. And we hear that kind of thing from students all the time. It's like, well, I can't just sit there and think about nothing because my mind goes on and on and on. And it's like, that's precisely what a mind does. And so meditation is a chance for you to go, whoa, look at all the things my mind does. And then we step into, like Josh was talking about, Ming, the practices related to Ming, which have to do with things like precepts and, all of that. That tells you that if you're sitting there on the cushion and your mind is chasing lots of things and you're having all of these desires or wants or not wants or, all of that stuff that's coming up, that tells us that we probably need to spend more time in the off the cushion time when we're not meditating, actually being able to abstain or not engage in or not chase the senses all the time, or not chase our feelings all the time, or not chase our actions or reactions or all of those things. Because if we can avoid those, oddly enough, when we sit down on the meditation cushion, our mind is quiet. So I know that's a convoluted answer, but I think with meditation it's a complicated topic because the word is so loaded in English.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And well, I would say that you said it's very complicated, but you have demystified it for us. So thank you very much for that. All right. So I'm going to ask Master Josh now another question. All right. So I'm wondering, in Daoism, they say that the Tao gives back to one.
Dao Sheng Yi,
Dao Sheng Yi,
San Sheng Wan Wu.
Oh, okay, can you say that again, please?
Yeah, Dao Sheng Yi, Yi Sheng Er Sheng San Sheng Wan Wu.
Yeah, I've been meaning to get to the bottom of that saying. That
has helped everybody for thousands of years.
A lot of people have given different kind of explanations.
Yeah,
so could you please give us a more simpler one?
Well, see, this is where we were talking about before, this issue of hermeneutics. So if you're reading the Tao Te Ching and you're reading it as a philosopher who's versed well in Western cosmologies, for instance, you're going to have a Western cosmological perspective on that particular phrase. So to answer that question, as a Taoist, we have an answer to that that's nearly universal among all Taoist schools too. So the complexity of the interpretation of that has to do with the diversity of the interpreters, not any latent or inherent complexity in the passage itself. The passage is actually very straightforward. The interpretations, however, are only, the complexity within the interpretations is really rooted in the population of the interpreters. And so many people want to write their text into the Tao Te Ching. And so this is one of the things with being a reader, a responsible reader, or just a reader in general. I don't know if we have to even qualify it. You can either read into the book or you can read from the book.
Okay.
And so if we're reading from the Tao Te Ching, it's a very simple statement, and it's a cosmological statement, and it's about the Taoist version of the creation of the universe that is rooted in, first, the Tao in the cosmos is like a non-material but yet material, for lack of a better term, chaotic sort of like primordial quality. And it can't be identified as either 0 or 1. It's both existence and non-existence. There's no polarity within that framework. There's no ups and downs, no lefts, no rights, no blacks, no whites, no colds, no hots. As soon as the Tao becomes productive, cosmologically that is to say, as when the Tao comes into existence or performs a nourishing act of bringing the universe into existence, this we call one. This is the moment when there's the first issuance of the cosmological chi from the primordial soup of the Tao itself. These are the cosmological interpretations. So that one then is one, yet it's bipartite. That one, from the Wuji of the Tao, we now call this the Taiji of one, which is to say, in the Taiji, as we know in the Taiji diagram, some people refer to as a yin-yang, there is both the polarities of yin and of yang, but they're in a bipolar static state. The yin-yang is one shape, it's one circle, it's one thing, yet it's described by two inherent qualities. But they're in a bipolar harmony, so they're not separate, they're one still. When those yin and yang separate from each other to become these cosmological qualities of what we might otherwise call positive and negative or male and female qualities, these we know as the liang yi, the yin and yang, as separate from within the unity, the bipolar unity of the Taiji. So we have the Tao, we have the one, which is the Taiji itself, then we have the two, which is the yin and yang of the Taiji. When the yin and yang merge, they create that offspring, that is the three. Then the three, which is to say the merging of yin and yang, produces all known phenomena, the 10,000 things. And that's what that statement means.
Wow. I've never read it anywhere like that before.
Because you haven't asked a Taoist yet.
I promise you, I've read it in so many places, from so many sources. I've never seen it explained this way. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, maybe I'll have to title my podcast, this interview, Demystification. Because there are a lot of things just hanging there that you two masters have demystified for us today. So on that note, I want to say thank you very much. I really, really, really wish to keep this conversation going with you, because I really wish to keep in touch, so that if I have more questions, we could do phone calls. I could call you.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we could do Zoom.
Yes, we could do Zoom.
Calls.
Yes. All in the name of bringing the light. Just like the name of the association you created, Parting Cloud. Yes, all in the name of parting. Yes, clouds, right? Yeah. Making things clear for the people out there. So you have done just that today. And on that note, I wish to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So before you go, I want you to introduce yourself one more time, please.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Jack Schaefer. My Taoist name is Xian Li Xuan.
Okay.
Right. I'm co-founder of Parting Clouds Taoist Education.
Okay.
I'm the other co-founder of Parting Clouds Taoist Education. I'm Josh Paynter. My Taoist name is Pei Li Wen.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.